for the internet, really. But that was what she believed. That's another reason she actually gave Jim her story at the risk of personal harm. The fact that everybody deserves to know the truth about alien contact and what the government has done.
Well, yes, and she not only put her reputation on the line by speaking about that to Jim, but as you mentioned, she was kind of cavalier about the fact that her life could have been in danger.
Yes.
Although there's a certain point, when you reach a certain age, if they come out and they do something to you, they're almost admitting that what you're saying is true. So they have kind of the, which is the better tactic? Do you just let the person talk and don't give it any energy by trying to suppress it or censor it or whatever, or do you take some kind of repressive action to keep the person quiet? I think a lot of times the government chooses to just step back and say, there's so much disinformation out there, who's going to know if a true story gets out?
Yeah,
that's what makes it difficult.
I kind of call that the Bob Lazar syndrome, where this physicist was supposedly working on these back engineering of alien craft at Area 51, and he comes across this information, and he, at one point, realizes either he goes public with this thing, or maybe they're going to off him before just knowing about this stuff and talking about it. So sometimes it is the best thing to do, come out with full force, publicize what you know, and let the chips fall where they may.
Well, it would cross my mind if I suddenly was given super hot information, and I might even in my statement, I might even say, if I disappear, you can pretty much figure that what I'm telling you is true.
Yeah. That this reminds me of an X-Files episode that's one of my favorite episodes. And, of course, I know that Jim is an X-Files aficionado.
No,
yes, he is.
Jim, could you preface this story I'm about to tell with your famous quote from the X-Files?
Well, wait, which episode are we talking about?
Well, I'm talking about the episode with the Code Talker Indians who have information that are going to release it if something happens. But I know you have
the quote that I know from the X-Files is a piece of poetry that precedes the episode called The Field Where I Died.
Yes.
Is that the quote you're talking about?
Oh, yes. And that is a famous episode, but the way you tell it is just sterling. So go ahead.
Well, I can do that. Okay, I don't know how you'll lead into the other episode, but it's the one where Mulder discovers that he has lived multiple lifetimes, and it starts off in what used to be a battlefield in the Civil War, and Fox Mulder is standing looking out over this field, and you hear him reading these lines where he says, I, too, have lived a life the sage's way, and tread once more familiar paths. Perchance, an age ago, I perished. Oh, you would put me on the spot with this one.
Oh, that's all right. You're doing just fine, and if you can't, just give us the gist of it. If you can't do the specifics, because that's okay.
Yes, but he. I too have lived a life the sage's way and tread once more familiar paths. Perchance an age ago, I perished, and in that act a prayer for one more chance went up so earnest that instinct with better light led in by death, that death was blotted out, the life was blotted out not so completely, but scattered wrecks of it remain, as now when once more seems the goal in sight again. That's most of it.
That's good.
But
oh man, that is just awesome. And that was a fantastic episode. Yeah.
It actually is from Robert Browning. I knew Chris Carter did not write that. It was I mean, Chris Carter is good, but he's not that good. But
yes,
you were going to talk about the Navajo Code Talkers, though.
well, there's this great episode where the smoking man has retrieved a highly classified computer tape back from Mulder and Scully, who had gotten it from a young IT guy on the run. And he is gloating to their boss at the FBI, assistant director. Gosh, his name is slipping right now, but he's the smoking man is gloating to the assistant director of the FBI, saying that yeah, we've got all the information now to put Scully and Mulder away for the rest of their lives. They will not bother us again. And of course, it's Assistant Director Skinner. Then he actually goes to a door in his office and opens it up, and in comes this old gentleman, American Indian native, and
Right.
he introduces him to the smoking man. And he tells the smoking man, Skinner does, that if anything ever happens to Scully or Mulder, this gentleman is a code talker and a Navajo Indian and has memorized every single sentence on those tapes and told 20 of his colleagues around the country. And they will go to the newspaper immediately if you do anything to Scully and Mulder. And it's just the first time I've ever seen the smoking man jaw drop in one of the episodes to the X-Files. I thought that was fantastic. The idea that you disseminate this information so quickly upon a specific event that it keeps the event from happening.
Well, that, of course, would be the strategy. For instance, I've long thought of that. If I was to find out that there was a big UFO landing or a crash or something in my immediate area, I would try as quickly as possible to get thorough filming of it and get the video out on the internet as many different ways as possible.
Yes.
As quickly as possible.
Well, I'll tell you what, if there are any whistleblowers out there who are contemplating coming forth with information that is sensitive or earth-shaking, I think you need to get a hold of the UFO detective, James Clarkson, because that's exactly the kind of strategy that people need to know about if they've got some information. I love that, James. That's fantastic.
Well, I've done spent a lot of time thinking about it, because I guess I'm always hoping that it will happen to me. My biggest frustration is that I keep waiting for my big UFO event instead of just getting to hear all of these fabulous stories from the people that I meet. That's my big frustration in this world.
Although, now his wife always gainsays that. And that's one thing that actually that I do in my practice as a psychic medium, okay? As a psychic medium, I deliver messages from the universe to people, okay? And people tend to deny things that they themselves, why they would believe a psychic and not believe their own experience, I don't know, but they do. And Jim has had some interesting experiences in his life. It's not like a silver disc landed on the front lawn, but that happens so rarely. But we have seen extraordinary things. And I think now that we're becoming more and more open to that and open to saying, yes, that is an extraordinary thing, and yes, these are wonderful, beautiful synchronicities, I think we are beginning to realize and even acknowledge things from the past that, yes, we have had significant communications. We have seen things. And that's important for everybody to allow themselves to do.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I am on my 6-month countdown now for meeting the alien.
Okay.
Okay.
And there's a good story that goes with this, and it's true.
Well, I'd like to hear that.
On July 3rd of 2017, Joanne and I were returning from the Roswell UFO event, and I tried a couple times to fly in and out of Roswell. I don't know if you've ever tried that, but they don't have a body scanner, and because I have various metal parts in my body now, I don't like airports with no body scanner because they give you the extra personal search, and it's not a good time. So we rented a car from Albuquerque and, of course, drove the 200 miles to get to Roswell. So we drove back that morning, and we decided to stay overnight in Albuquerque. So there's an area called Old Town, and there are several stores there that sell Native American art, and we went into one at almost closing time. So that's the scene. It's almost 5 o'clock. As I recall, I think it was a Monday. And when we go in the store, there's Joanne and I. There is a woman, a Native American woman, who it turns out her name is Ruby Blue, and she is from the Tesque Pueblo, the Tiwa tribe, and she considers herself a medicine woman. When we walk in the door, she's getting ready to do a blessing ceremony with this very unusual family of 5 people. The 5 people are a middle-aged couple who are not terribly remarkable, man and a woman, and their 3 children. The 3 children look nothing like their parents. The 3 children are strikingly beautiful. There's 2 boys and a girl. All of them are very tall with blonde hair and extremely blue eyes, and they all look like they could be fashion models. And they are much taller than their parents. This woman behind the counter looks at Joanne and I and says, I was just about to do a corn blessing ceremony. I asked Spirit for 2 witnesses, and obviously Spirit has heard me.
No.
And then she says, would you like to be the witnesses? And we said, with an opening like that, well, of course we said yes. And we went over and we stood in this line, and she gave us each a small pinch of ground corn to hold in our palms. And so we faced in each of the 4 cardinal directions because the Native Americans considered the number 4 as sacred. And each time we turned, she said a prayer in her language. At the very end of this, I remember that Joanne, there was something in her vision that really upset Joanne a little bit, made her start crying. And I was talking to the lady behind the counter, and I had just started to say something, and I decided to turn back to look to see what happened to this family, and it could have only been a few seconds, and they were absolutely gone. All 5 of those people were gone. I didn't see them walk out of the shop. I never heard the door open and close. They were just gone. I've never seen a group of people disappear that quickly.
And the children never said a word. And that Ruby told us that they were triplets. There was one boy that was taller, a boy that was slightly shorter, and then the girl was about the same size as the second boy, and none of them ever said a word. The parents told us a little bit about themselves, but the kids never spoke. And then, like Jim said, and then Jim was interested. The reason we'd gone into the store was he wanted to buy a bolo tie, and it said they had them. And so when he turned around, Ruby Blue was standing in front of the display of bolo ties, and he was going to say something. And then, though, not to be rude, he turned back to the people, and I did too. I had seen this vision about us moving, and I won't go into that right now, but we turned around, and literally they had disappeared. It was very, very eerie. But Ruby Blue didn't seem concerned. She just went on talking to Jim. So then tell what they said.
I picked out a bolo tie because there was one of them that I thought kind of spoke to me. And